Welcome, friends. Welcome. It was beautiful music to start and bringing us into our space of the garden, our sacred space, which is our agora. Agora that we create together. Agora is a place where community meets and shares and looks for the ways forward. So welcome to our garden. And to start our time together, we invite us to light up a candles. So if you have a candle, please bring it up. And as we do it, think about a place that's has sacred significance for you, your garden or place of beauty. And let's connect our places of beauty into our joint garden. We invite you activate your videos, at least at the beginning, that we could welcome each other, and it would help us to create our space together, our togetherness.
It's so good to see you all.
And so we come together under this energy of Scorpio. And I ask Daniela to lead us in a short alignment.
Good to see you all, first of all. So let's close our eyes and perceive ourselves in our beautiful common garden. Each of us in our part of the world, yet sharing the same space and energy. And as we breathe in the air and with it these potent scorpionic energies, we turn our attention to our heart, to the heart of our heart, to the Holy of Holies, where abides an eternal spark, made of joy, this spark, joy that comes from the experience of the oneness. This tiny yet vibrant spark is a part of the flame of the entire universe. And let us allow its brilliance to illumine our minds, harmonize our emotions, and energize our etheric or physical bodies. We allow this spark to calibrate all of our energies to the frequency of joy. Yes, let's allow ourselves to see it, feel it, sense it as it radiates throughout our bodies, all of our bodies, transforming us into a smile, into a federation of smiles coming from our cells, from our emotions, from our thoughts. And the brilliance of this energy of joy also radiates into our environment, immediate and beyond, connecting us heart to heart, mind to mind, soul to soul, until we see ourselves as points of radiant light surrounding our beautiful planet and creating this network, this sphere of light, of love, light of love. We connect to the center of our brilliant global sphere and link our hearts to the heart of our group. Which in turn is forming a triangle with a hierarchy and Shambhala. And as we stand in the downpour of these energies, in that place where three lights meet, the light of the form, the light of the soul, and the light of life, let us voice the affirmation of the disciple. We are a point of light within the greater light. We are a strand of loving energy within the stream of love divine. We are a point of sacrificial fire focused within the fiery will of God, and thus we stand. We are a way by which men may achieve. We are a source of strength enabling them to stand. We are a beam of light shining upon their way, and thus we stand. And standing thus, revolve and tread this way, the ways of men, and know the way of God. And thus we stand. Thank you. Let us begin our work.
Thank you so much, Daniela, and welcome to everyone. On this full moon, Uranus conjunct the moon, full moon time. Lots of unexpected and interesting things come unfold. I am delighted to welcome Michael Lindfield and Lisa Love to this conversation. And I'm going to pass it very quickly over to them. Just a couple of housekeeping reminders. This is a conversation, so if you have a question, let's try raising hands or use the chat. We'll try to keep track of that, and the team would just watch if I'm missing something and somebody raising a hand that I don't see. I'll try to find the best time in it. So I'm turning it over. So the first, so if you are new, our format is we have a conversation about what's true now for a little bit. We have a short musical interlude to give a breath. We have a meditation, and then we come back for another conversation about what's the next right step in this ongoing path. And then we close. So turning it to Lisa and Michael, welcome so much. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for coming to visit and share with us.
Thank you. Lovely to be here. I'm speaking from Meditation Mount in Ojai, Southern California. And I think, Lisa, are you here in California?
Yes, I'm in Ojai, right near you.
Oh my gosh, we're both broadcasting from Ojai. How wonderful.
So Lisa, I think you are going to begin.
Sure.
Yeah, just go back and forth.
So, as probably all of us know, you can't help but turn on the news or anything these days, and it just feels like Scorpio energy is constant. And the polarities, it's a fourth ray sign of, I don't want to name all the polarities I was going to, is also a constant thing going on. And so as I was sitting with how to prepare for this, I was really reminded of a few stories connected to Scorpio. And yet what's true for me at the very moment is that beautiful meditation that you just did, Daniela, because that is the solution of Scorpio. So the three stories, most of us are familiar with the Hydra, the labors of Hercules story. And it's interesting, I'll get to the heads of the Hydra in a moment. But the way to deal with that is we have to get down on our knees and be humble and ask, what is it that we don't know? It's always the hardest to find the what we don't know that we don't know part of it. And as we move into that humble space, the way to solve the Hydra heads is not to cut one off, but to go within like we just did with you, Daniela, and to remember who we are. And I was reminded, we always want to look out at the Maya out there, all the stories of what's going on out there, and it keeps drawing us out like the Hydra. And we forget to go within and to remember who we are. So that's the solution. We start with the solution. And I also thought it's interesting because the story of the Hydra comes from the labors of Hercules, Greek mythology. But most people don't know 5,000 years ago, some say 7,000, some say more, was the story of the Ramayana, the oldest story we have known in human history, the story, the Yana of Rama, or Rama Sita. Sita is his wife, which is like the Mother Earth, who is kidnapped by Ravana, a man with 10 heads, like the Hydra has 10 heads. Interestingly enough, each of the heads of Ravana are immortal, just like with the Hydra. And if you try and cut one off, it grows back. So we have the same reminder going on, I thought, for thousands of years. The hierarchy, the wise ones, the masters have been trying to give us this path. And how does Rama rescue Sita, the mother aspect? He has to build a bridge from the tip of India to Sri Lanka. He has to build a rainbow bridge. It's the same story going on over and over. And so I was thinking, you know, I start the day in meditation and I look out and I see the beast, which is also in Revelations. I've done a whole series of Revelations, the esoteric meaning. And it's the same thing. We have to go up into the throne room. And the 144,000 is of the chosen ones, is the number of points of the stars that you see in Revelations, or the petals of the chakras. So it's the same story. So we start our day, I thought, and we look out there. And I was thinking of all the people, including myself, that want to try and advise others of how to deal with the problems in the world. And I concluded before I came to this talk by saying, I really need to look at who's talking. In me, in them, who's talking? Is the beast talking? The heads of the Hydra are sex, comfort, money. What's the motivation? Is it for sex, comfort, money? Is it feeding fear, hatred, the desire for power? Is it producing pride? That's one of my favorites for myself. I always got to work on that one. Separativeness, cruelty. Who's talking? The heads of Ravana are jealousy, negative thoughts, anger, lust, delusion, hatred, selfishness, pride, greed, ego. So I've come to this interesting contemplation, because I haven't really figured it out, that when I go out in my day, which I will after this talk, and you know, I see people worried, etc. Well, that's the Hydra, fear, etc. And how can we bring people back to the meditation we did with you, Daniela? Who are we really? Because that's the only way, whether it's Revelations and the beast there, or Ravana and Rama, who's a Christ-like figure trying to overcome it. And also that reminds me, one last thing I want to share. And that is, Rama is an incarnation of Vishnu, as is Krishna, Christ consciousness, Buddha, Buddhic consciousness. And so just a few days ago, the Theosophical Society shared a wonderful video on discernment. And so I thought that's another thing for Scorpio. Bring it up into the light, the discernment, so that we are not the snake lying on the ground, not able to see anything. We're not the scorpion. We hear something and we want to attack back. We're reactive emotionally. we're the eagle that helps. We're a little more calm, kind of looking it over, inquiring into it. But better yet, what we all want to be, how can I be a phoenix? How can we help humanity be the phoenix? So that's why I put up the scorpion stars behind me. And that's what's up for me. Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you. I'm going to take a couple of deep breaths, Lisa, just to drink in the panorama that you've painted in which we live and move and have our being. Of all the 12 labors of Hercules, the one that speaks to me most is this one in Scorpio. For the obvious reasons, Scorpio rules the path of discipleship, and I happen to have Moon in Scorpio, Scorpio rising, so that apparently it's a I'm taking these lessons along with everyone else on the planet. I do want to pick up on the imagery that you've presented, because for me, the Hydra, and you name the heads, I think that's wonderful. On the physical plane, sex, physical comfort, money, and then the emotional fear, hate, and ambition, and pride, separativeness, and cruelty on the mental plane. And that's what we're looking at in the world. Collectively, we as humanity are facing, we know that humanity stands in front of this first initiation where Christ is to be born within the cave of the heart. But that can only happen when we've come face to face and overcome that which the Hydra represents. And as you mentioned, Lisa, it's about kneeling in humility. And I'm reminded of what DK said about humility being an adjusted sense of right proportion. So we don't aggrandize ourselves, we don't diminish ourselves, but we stand in the authenticity of our sovereignty. We stand in the truth of who we are in right proportion. And one of the things I've noticed is often when I've overcome a test, I'm tempted to check that box. Right, done that one, what's next? And what I've experienced this week very intensely is that things that I thought, oh, Michael, you've taken care of that, have come knocking on the door again. I'm not sure if other people have experienced it this week. I thought, well, I've taken care of that to some degree, or, it's not going to bother me anymore. And back it comes. So I've had this experience of somebody hammering on the door of my solar plexus, not trying to get in, but trying to get out. And so we know with the Hydra, the secret is to kneel in humility, but then we can't mud wrestle the Hydra. It's slippery, it lives in the ooze, it lives in the mud, which is a combination of earth and water. And if we mud wrestle, we get pulled under and we get drowned. And as Lisa said, if you cut off a head, two more sprout. All we can do is to kneel down, lift it up into the light of day where it loses its power. When it goes into the Buddhic plane, into air, it loses its power. So I was looking to say, well, what are we about? What have I got to do? What have we got to do to, it is defeat the Hydra, but it's more to overcome and to graduate the tests of the Hydra. So here's what I'm looking at is, if the Hydra represents all these patterns that need to be redeemed, I need to go through a spiritual detox. There are certain things inside of me that have to be flushed out, have to be cleansed. And so what I'm seeing now is the last vestiges of the things that are really stuck inside our system are always the most difficult. They're the toughest weight to last because they hang on. And what I bumped into this week on an emotional level, one of just fear and holding on, and I just said, oh, I gave it a name. And so I wrote it down today just so I would know what it was. I'm calling all these holdouts, these most stubborn and difficult aspects of myself, the recalcitrant residue of deeply imprinted patterns of behaviors and beliefs. The recalcitrant residue of deeply imprinted patterns of behaviors and beliefs. And therefore, I am responsible for doing the deep cleaning of my own house. And we are responsible for doing the deep cleaning of our collective house of humanity. And so the focus for me now, and maybe for this time together, is what does it mean to take on responsibility for the deep cleaning? Because it's one thing to clean up our own act. And then I think the way things work is once we have, if you like, dislodged and dissolved all the things that we need to face in our lives, the dweller, when we've shown our capacity to redeem to some degree, then we're given by life chunks of group karma, of the collective patterns to deal with. So you can't just say, well, I'm clean, and you sit around waiting for everybody else to get clean. Once we have cleaned our house, we're ready to take on more what I call chunks of collective karma, chunks of the collective patterns, because that's what it means to serve. That's what it means to be part of to walk the path of the Savior, which is the redeeming of matter and the lifting of matter into the light. But it's a very personal thing. This is not just a study group. We are the crucible in which this alchemical process is taking place. So what I'd love to do, because I think it's good to finish this opening statement, is to come back and look at what is the alchemical process that we're going through together? How do we hold the crucible? How do we place ourselves inside? And how do we turn lead into gold? Because gold is the color of the soul, the color of wisdom. And that's what we seek to give birth. And that really is once the hydra is lifted into the sky and loses its power. All of that energy then becomes this golden light. And so that's what I'm sitting with. It's not a story of Greek myths thousands of years ago. This is something that's living inside of Michael right now. And we're inside this incredible psychodrama, which is the outworking of the destiny of Gaia, the destiny of the planetary logos.
Lisa, I can see you thinking and responding. So I'm going to leave you two in conversation to go back, because I know you have responses, and I'm going to leave you. I would ask anybody who has questions, please put them in the chat or put your hand up if you want more clarification. If you want to just stop and breathe for a minute, we can take that, because we've just had a really huge download. I can't thank you enough for this opening, but I'll leave it for you for the next 10 or 15 minutes and the group to engage in this and see where we go, because I can see, Lisa, you're thinking. I know there's responses going back and forth. So.
Well, I have mainly, I was just really acknowledging and appreciating what you were saying, Michael, and the value of the work, you know, as one with a psychological background, doing the inner work. And really, the Scorpion is the best therapist. Libra and Scorpio are the therapists. You know, what a beautiful thing that the Scorpion, Michael, with your Scorpio energy, you know, is willing to take the poison. We're willing to sit with the toxins and the poison and transmute it for the sake of service. I love that you bring that in, Michael. That's one of the reasons I was nodding. I just like so many of your points, Michael. And especially, how do we do that as a group? I appreciate that, highlighting that too, Michael, because that's why I feel we're here together in this sharing right now. How do we, with the group light, the group soul, make that ability to absorb those toxins and transmute it and be that phoenix even more possible?
Thank you, Lisa. If I'm to reflect on who we are, and we're not this fixed group with a membership, we're this loose-knit association of souls who have been called to serve, who recognize each other. It's not a club. We're told that the new group of World Service is not a club. You could call it Club Med because we meditate, but it's this looseness association held together by the call of the soul. And I've seen us in the last few years heal some of the differences, bridge the divides, and to stand, and we named it a couple of years ago in one of our meetings, stand as the planetary server. Each of us are aspects of this one vehicle of service. That for me was a turning point, which means then we can do the work together, because we all do it in our own areas and our own groups. However, we do it as the one planetary server. We act as if we are humanity. And you know from psychosynthesis, the whole thing of acting as if. And then suddenly the if falls away and you act as. And I believe that we're in training to act as the planetary server. And we've been practicing by acting as if. I think the time for if is nearly over. So, and we step into that. But it does mean each of us doing the deep work. This is unavoidable. And as you named earlier, we've got these three symbols of Scorpio. We've got the scorpion, and where I go to Italy, and where I live in Italy, there's always scorpions in my house. I'm always having to remove them. The first time I met them, I went, oh my gosh. And then I lovingly put them in a cup, and I take them outside and put them in the garden and say, yes. So we have the scorpion, which we know can sting itself if it's placed in a ring of fire. Then we have the eagle, as you name, which is the soul. And then you said the phoenix. Well, it's also the dove, is the third image. So we're moving from scorpion to eagle to dove. And that is the journey of the human soul. It's beautiful. So it's no accident then that Scorpio rules the path of discipleship, because this is the merging, the re-merging of the soul and the personality. This is the merging of the fourth and the fifth. And we do it through purifying ourselves. So what does it mean to merge the fourth and the fifth inside of Michael, inside of our group field? We can say, oh, merging the fourth and fifth, let's get in touch with hierarchy. Yeah, but the equivalent is inside of us. The fifth lives inside of us as the soul. The fourth lives inside of us as the human, the incarnated self, which is the agent of the soul on earth in time and space. And we build that rainbow bridge, as you said, not geographically from Sri Lanka to this point in India, but we know that it's a reciprocal building. It's a reciprocal approach. You build from both ends. And I believe the greatest work that we have to do together is to clean house. We've just had COP26 in Glasgow. We're talking about extreme climate disaster. We're talking about pollution. And yet the roots of pollution start within the psyche of the human being, within the unfortunate negative release of toxic emissions through separative thinking, through hatred. The cleanup act starts with us. So it's to hold this lightly as well, and not to feel like overly guilty, but just say, look, we made some I made some unwise decisions in the past. At the time, they were the best decisions I could make based on what I thought was good for me. The shift takes place when we shift the locus of our living from the survival of the separated self to the service of the common good. That's the shift we're looking for in our human family. And I believe that's the shift that each of us are making, have made, or in the process of making, from the separated self to the service of the good of the whole. That's part of the redemption practice inside of Scorpio.
I think I'd like to make one more comment, and that for me goes back to the idea of the humility. Because even before I went on to this talk, somebody sent me some information, which, all these opposing camps going on out there. And again, coming back to what it is that we think we know, but we really don't know here. And also how to build the bridges. I mean, it's so easy to, especially at this time, to want to label and categorize people. And I do that still myself. But how do I let that separatism in myself go and build a bridge from the heart with other people? Where do I find that common ground? We have people from different countries here, even, different perspectives. How can I step out of my own tendency to pride and open my ears and open my heart and open my mind and close my mouth? So I think those are some of the lessons as well for group life and also discipleship and the Scorpio and building the bridge.
Thank you. Well, then let me add some closing thoughts before we open it up, prompted on by what you've just said. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, humility, the adjusted sense of right proportion. Wow, another deep breath to take this all in. The heart, you're absolutely right. The heart is the organ in which I can hold another person. If I hold a person in my mind, I normally have an opinion. If I hold them in my heart, I have an appreciation. And the thing about beliefs, I've noticed, the problem is I believe my beliefs to be true, or the truth, rather than my beliefs being my current interpretation of how I perceive reality. And then we have, if I have a point of view, that point of view normally crystallizes into a fixed opinion. And then I meet somebody else with a different fixed opinion. And guess what? We're at loggerheads, not loggerhearts, loggerheads. And what we have to do is shift from points of view to viewing points. So I need to walk in your shoes, understand what you're seeing through your eyes of the heart, so that we assimilate all these viewing points, and together we have a holographic vision of what is, rather than just a point of view. So that for me is part of the work. But the biggest one that you just sort of helped me name clearly is the belief that I have that my beliefs are the truth. And I think that's where we're stuck at the moment collectively. So I know we put a lot of stuff in the field. I'm sure it stimulated everyone who's here. And so Sharon, next.
Well, I'm just the thing that kept coming up, and I'm interested to hear what the participants here have been thinking. I know it's hard when there's so much richness coming out to get clear thoughts. But Michael, when you talked about, and both of you have spoken about Scorpio and the heads of the Hydro being a challenge to overcome the challenges and surrender. And those two words for me say two different things. So overcome has a power sense. I'm going to overcome by power. And whether, if my beliefs, I believe them, I'm going to overcome that person's belief system by some kind of power. It's a very, by me being more right, and me be argue, or whatever it is, pride, whatever it is, there's that power thing where surrender and kneeling and lifting up brings in the heart. And those two words are both part of Scorpio, and I think you've both spoken about each side of them. But it seems to me, at least for me, it's those two. Okay, am I trying to overcome something in the ninefold, or am I surrendering to take a look at and hold it and make it my friend and allow it to and bring it into the light? I'm just curious if anybody else is in that, or if you have. Yeah. That's been sitting with me, and I just.
Well, I can add something, because it seems counterintuitive that we rise by kneeling. And when we surrender, we don't lose our power, we gain more power. Because you surrender the limitations and then become part of a greater system of life, and therefore have access to that life because we are serving that life. If I'm trying to overcome for Michael to be victorious, then I gain power, but it's a limited power, and it's one that I can lose. The power that we gain through surrender can never be lost.
right? And that the power changes depending on one's perspective.
Yeah, power is the amount of psychic energy to get the work done, to manifest the plan on earth. Power is what it takes to carry out the assignment of the soul. It's not a self-aggrandizing energy. It doesn't inflate us and blow us up as like balloons.
I want to share one quick thing. In the story of Ravana, the way you overcome Ravana, because he doesn't have like an immortal head, but he has a stone in his belly. And Rama has to take out the stone from his belly. In other words, that individual sense of power in the solar plexus is how that story says there it is. Very good.
I'm holding at this moment Shungite in my hand, the cleanser, because exactly this is where the power is. It's in the cleansing and the surrendering to the process of cleansing. Thank you, Lisa, for that reminder. Thank you, Sharon, for bringing this in, because this is really important. Surrender is not the loss of power, it's access to the greater power of the universe through our souls.
And the heart is a greater power, right? And it's finding, and so that whole dichotomy of, well, the Scorpio thing, for I battle, and from the battle I emerge triumphant. So what is that? How do we make the battle better? What's a soul battle versus the physical wrangling of, even though there's that struggle. It really gets all mixed in. I'm just looking at Maria from Daniela in the chat. Daniela says, from the 40 rules of love, if you want to strengthen your faith, you will need to soften inside. For your faith to be rock solid, your heart needs to be as soft as a feather. Now, would be those two images, two things to put on the altar for the next little while, right? Have a rock and a feather as a reminder of that. And Mariana Thierry says, what you give away is yours forever. Okay, all right, let's breathe a moment. I'm going to just take a few seconds silence and just give us a little heart music from the Native American flute to let this sink in and give us some space before meditation. So at this point, if you would like to turn off your video for the meditation, you can do that. And if not, what do you want?
So let's meditate together. Taking a few deep, gentle breaths. Bringing ourselves to a point of stillness. And standing inside the heart. The center of love. And those of us gathered today, we connect heart to heart to heart, weaving together through lines of lighted love the fabric of our communion and community. We stand as the group heart, beating in resonance. Inside the group heart there burns the fire of love. And we allow ourselves to rise in love and to enter that greater field of love that is the heart of Christ. The heart of Christ is the crucible in which we go through the deep alchemical process of transformation, of transmutation, of liberation. So let us stand together and call upon the fire of that greater love to move through our being as a group, purifying and cleansing and creating a vessel fit for service. May the power of the Christ flow through and from the body of the server, the one planetary server. And we sense a great clearing in the field. As a group, we are more receptive. As a group, we are more open to impression. So as we enter the silence together, let us be open to receiving insight, inspiration, and the blessings that come from the heart of the Christ as we seek to play our part in the one work. within the chalice of our group heart, we have registered and received impressions from the heart of the planet, the heart of the Christ. As we assimilate these, they begin to take shape. A new insight comes to us about how we can best play our part. Insight that reveals next steps on the path of service. And the heart also radiates. So we now have added power through telepathic radiation to seed the ethers with new possibilities, the impressions we have received. So let's complete this meditation by reconsecrating ourselves to the service of the Coming One. We have no other life intent. So let's become aware once more of the beating of the heart, not just our individual heart, but the beating of the group heart through us, the beating of the heart of Christ in us. And as we bring our attention back into our daily awareness, we carry with us the vastness of the plan, focused in the particular of daily life. So let's take a few deep, gentle breaths as we bring ourselves back to an awareness of each other on this call. And when we're ready, we can open our eyes. See who else has been called to serve. And give gratitude for our companionship on the path. Thank you.
Michael, thank you. And as we are coming back, I would invite, impressions from the past first section in meditation. If there are impressions or thoughts that you would like to share with the group, knowing that we can all benefit from that, I'd love to see those in the chat or for you to come out Again, this is not necessarily about our own path, but about our group work here. So, and if you don't have anything particular, if you can put a yes or a 1 in the chat if to this point something has dropped in, it has been illuminating, if something has opened up for you. I'll take a rest for that for a moment. Thank you, Shirley. Yeah. I know I have. Catherine says it was a healing, reconnecting experience with gratitude to the group. Hi, Catherine. Good to see your name. Thank you.
If I may,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting how this words, Michael, that you said about calcification in the beginning, and the idea of the stone in the stomach comes together because really, when something that is required to be a living substance becomes form, essentially stone, it's impossible to live with it. And whatever access, right, that we acquire in our physical body becomes structure which we don't need really, and must remove if we want to continue as living beings. It is, I think, really interesting how it connects with the group vision, because individually you can cleanse, but still I would have some parts which are completely unclear to me, like the same way that we don't see the calcified, arteries in our body, and something that we take as something, positive becomes structure that pertains us from living. But my fellow group brother will probably see that and ask me, why would you take that so much in? Is it really necessary for you? I noticed something. So in a way, the group becomes this portal of group intuition precipitated in the field of the group, so we can be mirrors from one another. And at the same time, whenever we work as a group, whatever we think we are clear from, if we are a group, we're not, because it comes to us, this whatever it is that group is experiencing comes to us as a principle. And it's not enough to cleanse it from our own life, but also like not just with water, right? The common source of water needs to be clean. So it is very good to see those processes and the way to be with the group soul and work through the group as a being to do this work. And the third point was that in our life, those calcifications, I believe, in the esoteric life, the most representation of that principles are words, because words that we keep using, this vision of the thought forms, the expression of thought forms that we saw as something that came with the idea, became thought form, became word, and now we use those words as rocks to build upon it. And we could actually start looking back, removing the word and looking back at the essence or the idea that brought that word about, and see if that word is needed, or the understanding, the process of understanding, the process of intuition is needed in our work more than words. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Katya. And I think just to that point, if Kate and Michael, I'm just going to read these comments in the groups and then I'll pass it over. We'll just go with this. Mariana, to that point about pains, maybe we can't avoid pain in the past. And that made me think of, walking, as Michael has that rock, walking down the road. I live on a gravel road, and a stone gets into my shoe. And the question is, what am I going to do with it? How am I going to keep on walking, live with it? Am I going to stop and balance on one foot and get it out? And that's the metaphor, right? And I'm just going to read these other couple of comments, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and Michael. Please, I love seeing these because it really does help the group field when we have words put into the chat. Josette Lecière says, very deep presence of the heart and connection or immersion with the heart of humanity. So that has been her experience. And Catherine, this is really, and I love the wording here, such appreciation for this gathering. I'm reminded something about what surrender is. Not a giving up, but a giving up of our idea of how the outcome will be. This discernment about choices of activity and detachment re the results feels potent in a wiser realm of love. And I'll just pass that over to you, and Michelle has said, just so deeply powerful to feel the group energy align within the Sacred Heart. And Catherine comes back, yes, beautiful to feel then authenticity and alignment of the group beyond words. And so now we have, what's the next right thing?
Wow.
Over to you.
Well, maybe, Lisa, we could explore what's just been generated in the group. And one of the things is pain unavoidable and the pain of the past. What I've been looking at recently, and because of my background in gardening, I always come back to analogies from nature. The pain of the past needs to be composted. And anything that's composted, a form that's dead and has served its purpose and lives in the past, once it's composted, it goes through this process of breaking down, of putrefaction. If you know a compost pile, in the beginning, a compost pile smells very sour and it's sticky and it's slimy. And you know when a compost is ready, when you put your hand in, touch the soil and it's crumbly and you smell it and it's sweet. It's like cooking. You know when something is al dente, when it's, the spaghetti is al dente. Well, when the compost is al dente, it has this beautiful sweetness to it. And once we have turned the pain of the past through the recycling unit called the heart, it turns into the sweetness of grace and gratitude. And it liberates us. And the pain of the past was simply that which gave us the wisdom. And the pain itself was the carrier. The phrase unpleasant good came into my life in early 1970s when I was in Denmark studying with a Danish philosopher called Martinus. And he said that all the so-called bad things that happen to us are the unpleasant good. Because later on, when they're transmuted into gold, all these pictures that we have of how bad things were have a gold frame around them because they have been transmuted. And so by liberating the past, composting it, lovingly placing our pain inside the heart, allowing it to become sweet, it enriches the soil of the present and allows then the right nutrients for the seeds of the future to be quickened. So that for me was sparked by what you said about avoidable, and then the whole thing of the heart being this great recycling. The heart does everything. It's an all-in-one function. It does everything. It keeps my mind in place as well. So that's what was prompted. Lisa, what was prompted in you?
I think for me, it started with your meditation, Michael, and then with some of these comments, the one about surrender. Sometimes the heart, I'm speaking as a psychotherapist, sometimes the hardest thing to surrender to is the pain within ourselves. And that's like the compost work we're doing in ourselves. The disappointments, the disillusionments, the woulda, coulda, shoulda, the way we think life should have been, we shouldn't have had any unpleasant good. And then I think, and what I've been trying to practice in my approach to other people, and in the approach that we make with the various groups we're connected with in the larger group, we want to be, the heart's a magnet. We want to be magnetic individually, but mostly magnetic as a group. So how can we surrender and look at the things we've done to each other with our 9 heads that we haven't been willing to have the humility to see? And how can we come to each other more with love and wisdom and compassion? And then as we build that together as a group for all of us, how magnetic we will be to everybody else around us who's going through their own composting and waiting for it to get to that sweetness, so to speak.
Oh, thank you. The key there is magnetic. We know the soul is magnetic. And so when we become magnetic, the soul controls the outer form. Can you imagine the soul of humanity controlling its outer form? Then we have what Assagioli is looking for, is not just the synthesis of nations, but the synthesis of all the units that comprise the soul of humanity. And you have an embodied soul of humanity. That's when the 4th becomes the 5th. That for me is that's the magical alchemical process, and moving from the 4 to the 5. When you think of it symbolically, you move from the cross to the 5-pointed star of Venus. You can draw so much symbology. However, the important thing, as we're realizing, is to do the work, is to look within. Look within for the soul, but look within at our own pain and realize the only person who can recycle that pain and provide forgiveness is ourselves. And we know that the Tibetan talked about the higher aspect of forgiveness is having one's life of forgiveness be a life of giving for, which is service. So the redemption of the pain clears a way for greater service.
Are you finished? Do you have other things to, I mean, are there people?
Well, how many words
Keep
do
this
we
open.
need? I mean,
We've got some time. I mean, this is a time for conversation, for questions, for comments, for an ongoing exchange, about the next right step for us right now. I'm wondering, actually, what I'm curious about is, do either of you have, we often ask our guests to offer a practice that we could undertake over the next month. And I'll let you all in a secret. Lisa's coming back for Sagittarius. So we've got this connection from Scorpio to Sagittarius, from the struggle to the triumph and off into the goal. So, between this time and the next time in December, do either of you have a particular practice that might be helpful for us to address the, yeah, Mike, you're both smiling, yeah.
Well, I'll start with something very simple and practical that I'm trying to do because of all the divisiveness and different opinions coming from the heads of people. I've just been trying to practice acts of kindness. They're not always random. Some of them are very intentional. With my neighbors, for example, we have very different points of view, but we have common ground. And so I've been, my son's father, interestingly enough, went through a major heart issue in the last month and went from 2 days to live to 2 weeks to live to now we're hoping 5 years. And I was talking with my neighbor about her sister and the suffering that she's going through and the mutual compassionate heart we generated there, and with some of my family members, different points of view and opinions. And I've been just trying to set those aside and say, well, you know, what are the other things in your life? And it's interesting how it comes back a lot to points of pain that need healing. So I would say, I mean, meditation, obviously, for me, meditation and music are the two things I say I could never live without. Take everything else from me, but those two. But that's been the conscious practice, even yesterday, again, with somebody that I had a real difference with. And just trying to, I was actually a little proud of myself, how I was able to maneuver the tendency to criticism in my mind and just drop into the heart and make a comment about the common ground that I think we could both find and ways that we could work together. That's what I'm doing very practically.
So that's kind of like finding common ground. And when I think of that, this might be what you're talking as well about dualities, two sides of the thing. The answer is in the third point.
And that third point is an intentional practice towards kindness.
Yes.
So it's not just mentally finding a common ground, but with the heart, find a way to practice kindness.
Yeah, I would echo that. Thank you, Lisa. For me, the answer to your question, Sharon, that you pose is the same as Lisa's: loving kindness. Loving kindness weaves together the torn fabric of humanity. If we believe that love was the pre-existing and motivating force behind all of creation, then only love can mend it, can heal it. And I do have a very simple technique. The simpler the better. When they get complex, you can get wrapped up in it. But I go back to this Danish philosopher Martinus. 50 years ago, we were in this group and somebody asked him, could you teach us to meditate? And he said, well, okay, here's what I'd like you to do. For the next 2 weeks, take 5 minutes in the morning, think of the people you don't particularly like or get on with, and think of the people that you know don't particularly appreciate you and get on with you. Send them love. Okay. When you've done this for 2 weeks, here's what you do. For the next 2 weeks, you do it for 10 minutes every morning. And then after that, now maybe we can talk about how to meditate. He's talking about creating a field of coherence, weaving together the dismembered and fractured body of our humanity. And that's what we have at the moment through the polarization. When the patterns of harmony break in society and break meteorologically, we get extreme political views, we get extreme weather. The extremes are the breaking of the harmonious patterns that are the natural order of a healthy system. So how do we recreate a natural, healthy system? We start by reweaving, and we start by coming back into the rhythm. And so loving kindness and just overcoming, as Lisa said, the tendency to criticize, which is why I've told my mind, you can't live in your own mansion. You're going to go and live in the heart. It's very good for you. And that way you don't think you're in charge of everything. We use all your wonderful skills, but your own power doesn't go to your head and you think that you can run the show. No, this is a group effort. This is a group endeavor. So I do believe, for me, loving kindness is what the world needs now. It's the healing balm.
What the world needs now.
Is love,
I'm,
love, love.
I'm just
Yeah.
looking at, and I think collectively we probably all have practices we could share. So if you have ways, and I'm just going to read a couple from the group, ways what you have been doing over the past 18 months, particularly, or 5 years, about healing the rifts. And Helen says, found lately that when in the presence of a divisive situation, to simply start by saying, I don't know what the truth is, even when I have an opinion in my head. By saying this from my heart, there is often an opening for a meeting point. So there's a practice. Beautiful. Martine says, thank you to all for this experience from heart to heart. To clean house is a very powerful hint to implement consciously. Shared responsibility in cleaning the root of pollution. Thanks, much love. Only love matters in the self. Jillian says, I was prompted to be softer. And Claire writes, Lawson, our dear friend, gave me a mantra that I found enormously helpful in healing over the years. It echoes Michael's practice of sending loving kindness to those we experience difficulty with, and vice versa. On the level of soul, I hold you in my heart. And I know Pema Chodron is a great proponent of the Tonglen meditation practice, which you can look up if you don't know. Tonglen means give and receive, and along with that, Ho'oponopono. I'm just, these are starting to drop in. The Ho'oponopono practice of can be used silently, even if the person isn't there to receive it. Any last words from either? Oh, just before, Laura, thank you. Found the common ground within my family, from whom I am mentally very different, in sharing my research on family history, building bridges between us that my knowledge and expressed opinions had broken, connecting hearts. Love underlies all things, truly. A beautiful way to put that. Thank you. So any last, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm
yeah.
sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Thank you.
It was prompted by what you just said, the practice of Tongling, because for me, that's what we were referring to before when we said once you have redeemed your own and cleaned your own house to a certain degree, then you're asked to be part of the cleaning crew for the group house. It's the ability to take on a greater poison of the system, and through the heart and through this practice, you purify it and then send it out. So the polluted waters come back out as purified waters. So that practice requires that you have the ability to clean your own house, and then that capacity allows you to take on the next sphere of responsibility, which is the group house. So I believe that's what it means to be the world server. It's part of, well, maybe that's what we are. We're house cleaners. We're offering ourselves as, we clean houses. the house of humanity. That first of all start with my own house. So we've got a cleaning service here going on.
Yeah. Last comments from you as well, and I'll pull up Dot's comment in a minute. Last closing statements, offerings, ways to tie this with a neat, tidy little bow. No. No tidy bows, Michael.
I actually have a tidy bow, but let's read.
My tidy bow happens. The tidy bow, it ties itself at the end of the process. Otherwise, once it's complete, and the bow is a bow, B-O-W. So it's
That sounds like the overcome surrender pit.
Yeah. So Lisa, sorry, you were about to say.
Well, I had actually found a song. I was inspired by you, Dot. I see your comment there, and I miss you, Dot. And the song is the song from a mother singing to a child. And it's called You Can Relax Now. And it reminded me that Scorpio is a feminine sign. And it's a divine mother. And in the song, I don't know if it'd be okay to share it and play it.
Sure.
But in the song, it reminds us that we're having a bad dream and we can wake up from it because we've misunderstood. The song says, We thought we were separate. But then if you hear it as a divine mother, the divine mother says, but now you hear my voice. And basically, you know that you're the soul. And so that song for me was a nice summary to kind of go back to the bosom of the divine mother, which we often associate with Cancer, but it's also Scorpio, who is ready to lift us out of the Maya, the delusion of that Hydra and who we think we are. And as her divine children, wake us back up. So I have the song if we could play it. If not, you
Absolutely.
have
Let me
the
just do
essence
these
of it.
last two comments, and
Sure.
I'd love to hear that, and then we'll close out. Dot says, the opportunity for the planetary server, alchemy through the heart, with the upcoming lunar eclipse. We assist with the collective pain of the past, becoming compost for planting seeds of the future. I'm also a gardener, Michael. I completely love that. Darcy says, the law of attraction and karma. 1. I apologize for the harm brought in the past. 2. I forgive the harm brought in the present. What is done is done.
Mhm.
The past is past. A new karmic cycle begins now. Only blessings of love in thought, words, and deeds. Lisa, over to you. You can share
Am
that.
I able to share my screen?
You should be able to, Sasha. Can just make
Yes,
sure you share.
you can share your screen. If you want to share music, you
Okay.
would have to do advanced sharing, that
I had it on
audio sharing.
I had it ready to share. Where is
Share
it?
and just share computer sound.
All right, everybody can see. Here it is. Scorpio full moon. There's the song. So let's see. To hide that so I can see my slideshow from current slide. Here we go.
Come on and open your eyes. Breathe deeply now. I am with you. You are the love of my life. You are my one creation. You are eternity, and that will never change. You can relax now. With you can relax
So it was breaking up a little at the end. Sorry for that. But to me, that was the divine earth, Gaia Mother, reminding us who we really are. Thank you.
And for a Scorpio time to be able to relax, it's a is a good reminder. Thank you so much for that, Lisa. That was beautiful. Before we just close up, thank you, Lisa, Michael, so much. This has really been a wonderful afternoon. And I'm wondering if this group for the, as a group for the next month until the next time we are here, if we would all commit to a practice, whether we do Tonglen each day, or we do one act of kindness, or so, make that kind of commitment as a group. See what happens a month from now. Just put that out there. Lisa and Michael, thank you. And I think we're going to, Sasha, any last announcements we have?
Yes, and yes, big gratitude for everyone being part of our gathering in the garden. And I think it's a very high point that we ended up. It's that point of Phoenix or dove of Scorpio to relax. I think we're very far from that yet, but it's good to hold that. And meanwhile, I think we have a lot of compost to make. Thank you. And Lisa and Michael, if you could please join us after this session for the debrief. You will receive the link in your email. And we continue working with the energy of Scorpio. It's a great opportunity for us all. And the peak of this energy will be tomorrow. And we invite us, as Sharon said, this month to reflect on the creative opportunity of this energy of Scorpio, and that's this fourth ray energy through conflict to harmony. And interestingly enough, Sagittarius is also the fourth ray, working with the same fourth ray energy. So, and that's the activity that we invite you to work with us during our meditation for the Common Good project. which we invite you to join on the 21st of November in 2 days, in 3 days, for the full moon meditation on the topic on through conflict to harmony, peace as action. And that would be the theme, the topic of our Sagittarius cycle. And we will come back at the new moon, gathering our impressions and meditating on strengthening the thought forms around this topic. So please join us on the 21st, on Sunday, and the new moon meditation will be on December 5th. That's my part of the announcements.
Thank you, Daniela. For a quick closing before we close the gate. This is Dragon, by the way. This is
As we stand in this uplifting field, in this downpouring, beautiful energies, I wanted just to share a quote, somewhat adapted quote from Course in Miracles, which I somehow think is very, c'est très parlant in French, but so the quote goes, "Spirit we are, holy children of God, free of all limits, safe and healed and whole, free to forgive and free to save the world." So thank you. And as we blow out our candles, I just wish to say, everyone, love you, everybody.
Thank you all very much. We will see you next month or at any of the other 2025 initiatives. We will be closing the gate. Claire, do we have a little music, outgoing music?
You are muted, Claire. Claire, please unmute.
Tatsavitu Varenyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Yona Prachodaya Om Bhuvaswa Tatsavitu Varenyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Yona Prachodaya Om Bhuvaswa Tatsavitu Varenyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Yona Prachodaya Om Bhuvaswa Tatsavitu Varenyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Yona Prachodaya Om Bhuvaswa Tatsavitu Varenyam Bargo Devasya Dhimahi Yona Prachodaya Om Bhuvaswa tak begitu padanya. Aku tebasnya dimahi dia, Yona racun budaya.